All right, welcome everyone. This is the Patreon exclusive video for July 2020, and I wanted to use this cover as an example. I did this a week or two ago, and I like how it turned out. The book ended up being canceled, but I thought it would be a good example for you guys to check out. And this one started. I was I how do I put this? So the heart was is so detailed on this, and she's kind of holding it out there, and I really wanted to kind of push that idea that this thing is really being almost shoved out of the canvas, like held out in front. And so I was trying to think of ways that would be interesting to light this, and I realized that if you can imagine, this is a very specific scenario, but if you can imagine like a shaft of light coming straight down, and she is holding the heart out in front of it, and it's hitting the lights, hitting it, but it's not hitting her. And so she's in shadow. Her arms and the heart and her hands are all in the light. And then, I could do reflected lights then off the heart onto her and everything else. And I thought that would just be a really dramatic looking thing. And so I decided to go with that. And this one started kind of messy. There's a lot of flats on this, and I was gonna try to paint it first on a different layer, and so the flats aren't exactly perfect. But I ended up going in and doing some. This is obviously, it's not really rendering so much as I'm just kind of toning the heart. The valves are a little bit lighter, and coloring the veins and things. Not really thinking about light and shadow at this point, just more about like what color the heart is. And so I started with that. Went into and put a hard light layer. If you look at this by itself, you can really see basically this hard light layer is putting a shadow on everything except for the wolf's eyes, and where her hands and the heart are. And then I painted that shadow in underneath on her hands, so you can see that here. And the blood looks a strange color at the moment, but some of the layers, I went under this and changed this later, so some of the layers on top will actually affect that. I did some rendering on the wolves because I ended up spending a good bit of time on the heart, making sure that it looked really realistic, and so I ended up thinking, well, if that's going to be realistic, I need to make sure everything else is really detailed. So, and this is kind of just brushy. If you get really close, you can kind of see it's not a ton of detail. I just kind of put in a bunch of brush strokes to make it look like fur. Same thing on this one over here. You can see this whenever you download it. There was another hard light layer on top of this that you can see all the rendering for the heart. A lot of specular highlights on the heart, because I'm thinking, I don't know if this thing is fresh or not, but if it was, I know that sounds gross to say, but if it was, then it would, I wanted it to kind of feel slimy and so and liquidy. So and you can see a little bit of the glow from the wolf's eyes on the sides here. It's pretty subtle, but I think it helps a little bit. And then the next one is, I've got it called Main Blue here, which is really just the primary light source that is hitting the main character. This was, if you look at it by itself, well, you can't really look at it by itself too well, but you can see that it's a lot. Some of this was done with the lasso, like on the hair, where I wanted the, where I wanted it to look like hair. I kept a lasso there, but a lot of these highlights were either originally drawn with the lasso and smoothed out with a blending brush, or was just painted in. You can tell where the lasso went on some of these areas here. And that's really just on the main character. And then this is the, it's labeled bounce light. There's a little bit more than that in this layer, but you can see I did a lot of really little subtle things like the red, and this is kind of rough, kind of scribbled in, but it's so small on the screen, where the light would hit the heart and then bounce into these shadows. Same thing on the end of the wolf's nose, on her chin, on her lip, on her nose, all the planes that are facing down, basically. And you can see a little bit more of that over here. And I also did the lighting for the blood. And this is really where the red of the blood comes in, and that purple is kind of acting like a shadow color. And let's see what else. I decided I went and looked at more wolf reference, and a lot of them have white snouts, so I basically painted white snouts on them. And this is an overlay layer that is darkening the wolves and adding a little bit of darken into these areas where the transitions are from light to shadow on her. You see a little bit of that popping in there. And it also tints the wolves a little bit more blue. Details, this was just, I think I did this layer in Procreate. I dumped it into Procreate and just kind of marked up little places in her hair and on her eyes, and just and changed her eyes a little bit, actually. I think I end up putting those orange eyes back in at some point. All the ink layers, this happened to be sent in separate layers just because Rebecca tends to draw on different layers. There is a levels adjustment, which is really just increasing the contrast everywhere. It looked a little flat to me. So what this levels adjustment does, where can I pull it up here? There we go. It's basically just brightening a little bit, and it's darkening a little bit. So it's brightening the bright parts, darkening the dark parts. So overall, just increasing the contrast, basically. Now at this point, I wanted it to be, the difference to be more stark between like the heart and everything else. So what I did, if you look at this layer by itself, you can see I tinted her blue, and this is on a soft light layer, and I tinted the heart with this orange color to make it even more warm than it already is. And that is what I was trying to do the entire time. In my head, I was like, oh, this is what I was this is what I saw in my head. I got all the way to the end just about before I added it, but it really did a lot to basically create that in that shadow area where she is, you know, all of that blue color that really only exists in the shadows, and then that red that again only exists in the heart area, and of course a little bit on her face and whatnot. But I like how it turned out. I was really happy with that once I figured out that that's what it needed. Glowing eyes, I think I did a bunch of glows on this. Yeah, there's eye glow, there's more glow, there's even more glow. This one, and there's more glow just in case. But so I wanted this to be, again, really kind of stark. Like this light is so bright that you're getting these bloom effects that are blowing it out everywhere. The other thing that was kind of a happy accident that I realized, and this is an overlay layer. You can see it's very fancy looking. I just took a red brush, soft brush right there in the center. And the thing that this did kind of unintentionally was it turned her skin this really interesting warm purple. Is that purple? Yeah, it's kind of a purple color. And I think in reality, that's probably what would have happened, because if she's cool, the light's reflecting off the heart and it's warm. So again, it was kind of a happy accident when I realized I started on the heart and then thought, well, you would kind of get this sort of red glow on her skin here as well, especially since there's so little light hitting her skin. It's mostly blue. And so it wouldn't take much of a secondary color to tint that toward purple. And so again, to me, this overlay layer makes me look way smarter than I am, because the final product, I would have never thought to try that color like that, but experimenting at the end of this made a big difference. But so anyway, that's kind of the breakdown on this cover. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to let me know in the comments or on the Discord. I appreciate your support very, very much. I am working on a video right now that it's taking a while, but it's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be a big color theory video, and I hope it answers a lot of your color theory questions is the goal. And so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys in the next video or on the Discord or wherever else I see you. Take care.